Guys, welcome back. Here we will try to understand how JVM handle an exceptions, right? So I spoke about what is exceptions. I spoke about what happens when exceptions will come, but we need to understand basically what happens behind the scene when you run any program. So the default exceptions handling, what it happens is uh, whenever inside a method, if you look at here, so whenever inside a method, if an exception has occurred, okay, any exceptions, the method creates an object known as exceptions object. Very important point. What will happen? The method will create one object called exceptions object and hand it off to the runtime system, which is nothing but your Java virtual machines. It will create one object and it will give you to the JVM. Now what happens? Exceptions object contains the name and the descriptions of exceptions, actually the type and descriptions, which I have already told you in my previous video. I have shown you also like how it happens, and current state of the program where exceptions has occurred. Three things it will give. Exceptions object will have these three informations: one, the type, descriptions, and at what state the executions happened, and it will be given to the Java virtual machines. Now creating the exceptions object, okay, and handling to the runtime systems is called throwing an exceptions. If you look at here, like we create the exceptions and we'll hand it over to the runtime system, we call it as throwing an exceptions. There might be the list of method that had been called to get the method where exceptions was occurred. See, this all happens behind the scene. So to create the exceptions object, right, there can be multiple methods which works behind, which you are not aware, right? Now the ordered list of method is called call stack. Actually I have shown you just in my previous to previous video, I have shown you how the call stack, when you make a method call and when actual execution will start, and when there was exceptions in the test 1 compiler came to test 2 and then it came to test 3, and then we had proper exception handling, and then after that the execution was proper. This we call it as a call stack, right? So there be ordered list of method is called call stack. Now the following procedure will happen. We'll try to understand what are the procedure will happen, okay, how this actual handling will happen. The runtime system searches the call stack, okay, to find the method that contains a block of code that can handle the occurred exceptions. Very important line. That's what the test 3 I was mentioning about, okay. When there is exceptions in the test 1 and test 1 was called by the method test 2 and test 2 method was called by the test 3. So when there is exceptions in the test 1, the Java runtime will look for the method that has proper exceptions that can handle your exceptions which is occurred on the runtime. This block of code we call it as exception handler. So whenever you have a code which handles your exceptions, we call it as exception handler code, okay, which was example 3, which I have shown you. In the example 3, when this guy makes a call, test 2 makes a call to test 1, test 2 makes a call to test 1, test 3 makes a call to test 2, test 1, right? When there is exceptions here, okay, compiler from the stack memory, this will get executed, compiler will come to test 2. Even this guy has no exception handling, the compiler will come to test 3, it has exception handling. So same, the Java runtime will look for the method which has the proper exceptions handling. This we call it as exceptions handling. Now what is the second point? The runtime system starts searching from the method in which exceptions occurred. It was occurred in the test 1, proceeds through call stack in reverse order. Very important point, I have already explained. Reverse order means the data, the method will get stored in the forward, whereas the execution will go to the backward, okay. When there is exceptions, the reverse order will get executed, right? When actual execution will happen, it will get executed in the reverse order. First test 1 will get executed, it's a LIFO concept, last in first out, then test 2, test 3, 4 and 5. So that's how the execution will happen, right? So come back, yeah, reverse order in which methods were called. Now the third point, if it find appropriate handler. Appropriate handler, I already spoke. You can have multiple handler for the exceptions based on your requirement. So if it finds, then it passes the current, then it passes the occurred exceptions to it. When there is exceptions, it will pass to it. it will pass to the catch block when there is a matching exceptions, right? Appropriate handler means the type of exceptions object thrown and matches the type of exceptions object it can handle. If both matches, so what are the type? Let's say it was thrown arithmetic exceptions, which we have seen that if the type is arithmetic here and in the catch block you have arithmetic, if both the matches, these exceptions will get handled to that particular catch block, right? Now if runtime system searches all the method on call stack and could not find the appropriate handler, then runtime system hand over the exceptions object to the default exception handler. When there is no appropriate handler, then what will happen? Runtime, what it will do? It will hand it over to the default exception handler, right? Which is a part of a runtime systems. By the way, whenever you don't handle, there will be default exception handler for all the program, right? Which will be a part of your runtime systems. This handler prints the exceptions informations in the following format. Okay, the format I have told you, and terminate the program abnormally, right? So if you remember here, when I was talking about, let's say when there is no exceptions handling here, right? This guy makes a call to test2, right? There is no exceptions handling here, by the way. Now at this point there is no exceptions handling. This guy will make a call to test5, test5 will make a call to 4 will make a call to 3, 2 to 1. So there is no exception handling here. Okay, let me comment this. Now what happens if you run this? Still your exceptions will get printed. Have you ever tried to understand why these exceptions gets printed? Look at here, exceptions got printed because whenever you don't have any exceptions handler, the Java runtime has default exceptions handler which will print your type of the exceptions and the message of the exceptions, like what caused these exceptions, right? Both will get printed, and this is done by the default exception handler. That's what I was talking about here in this definitions. So you can read through, you can go through these definitions which I have given in the very simple English, okay, and this you try to understand. In next video we will see that some more example of exceptions. Thank you guys, thank you for watching this.